few miles north of Stirling in the heart of Scotland is one of the nation's most iconic castles. This is the Scotlanders' take on Doune Castle. The castle is in the village of Doune, a part of Scotland where the gentle hills of the lowlands begin to give way to the hills of the Highlands. The village has shops, a good pub, a market cross, walks nearby, and you can't miss the castle because there's just one main street running through it. The picturesque River Teith, famous for its salmon run, flows through the village, and it's along its banks that you'll find Doune Castle. If it feels familiar, I wouldn't be surprised. You've almost certainly seen Doune Castle in a film or on TV at some point. Much of Monty Python and the Holy Grail was shot at Doune Castle, including the Knights of the Round Table sequence, which, if you're inclined, you can recreate in the exact same spot. If you go into the shop, you'll even find coconut shells to clang together. Doune can be a very silly place. Doune also played a starring role in Outlander as none other than Castle Leoch, the seat of Clan Mackenzie, though you'd have to go about 4 hours drive north to find the real seat of Clan Mackenzie west of Inverness. To cap it all off, Doune was Winterfell in Season 1, Episode 1 of Game of Thrones. If only the Starks had just stayed there. When you arrive at Doune Castle, or really any castle, the best way to come to grips with it is to start by walking around it. There's a nice little path that takes you right down to the River Teith, where you can enjoy the views and the sound of the babbling water, and you also get to admire some of the architectural features on the outside of the castle. These include the garderobe or toilet chutes, which, believe it or not, could be used defensively by pouring nasty substances down onto the heads of attackers. Tyrion would certainly approve. The way in is through the massive Gatehouse tower, which looms over 90 feet high. Doune Castle is built on a fairly straightforward courtyard plan, with 2 very large towers and a wall enclosing a space that all kind of activity would have flourished in the medieval and early modern eras. Nowadays, instead of hosting blacksmiths or breweries, they're more likely to be cleaning up after the last film set. As ever, there's interpretation on hand from Historic Environment Scotland to help you come to grips with it all. If you enter via the Gatehouse Tower, you'll emerge into the Duke's Hall, which would have been a lavishly decorated space. The decor we see now is actually from restorations in the 1880s, so it's quite different from how it appeared in medieval times. Head next door and you'll find the Great Hall, a cavernous space used for lavish feasts, complete with a minstrel's gallery. And behind every great feast is a great kitchen. Doune's Castle was one of the finest in Scotland. It has serving hatches so food can be taken piping hot from kitchen to table. Keep an eye out as well for the slash marks on the walls, made by servants sharpening the utensils on the stones. A narrow turnpike stair takes you up the tower into a range of nooks and crannies, and the rolling countryside comes into view from the windows. As with most Scottish castles, the upper levels were for private living spaces, as well as spiritual spaces such as a small chapel for the laird's family. For those of you who enjoy a good Easter egg hunt, see how many of the distinctive mason's marks you can find carved into the stonework of the upper stories. There are dozens to track down. Unfortunately, access to the roof is no longer possible due to conservation concerns, but this shot from 2013 gives you an idea of the views from the top on a nice autumnal day. And now, a very brief history. The Romans established a fort at Doune in their attempt to subdue the Meatai tribe who lived beyond the Antonine Wall. This reconstruction by Bob Marshall of a Roman fort at Rough Castle in Falkirk gives you some idea of what it may have looked like. There was almost certainly a castle built here by the early 1300s, but it's not until the late 1300s that Robert, Duke of Albany, built the castle we know today. Albany was a member of the royal Stuart family, and became known as the uncrowned King of Scots due to his stranglehold on the levers of power between 1388 and 1420. When King James I returned to Scotland after being held hostage in England for 18 years, he sought vengeance against the Albany Stuarts. After all, with him gone, they were in charge, and James was convinced that they deliberately delayed his return. Robert's son, Murdoch, was hanged alongside his son and father-in-law. Doune was seized by the crown and became a royal retreat, with the royal centre of Stirling only a few miles to the south. The Jacobites, led by Bonnie Prince Charlie, held Doune during the famous 1745-46 Rising. They kept several prisoners at Doune Castle, but they launched a daring escape by tying bedsheets together and scampering down the kitchen tower. One of these prisoners was John Witherspoon, who went on to become President of Princeton and a signatory to the United States Declaration of Independence, a document no doubt inspired in large part by Scotland's own Declaration of Arbroath, composed in 1320. Thanks for joining us at Doune Castle. Be sure to like and subscribe to catch our quick takes on many more Scottish castles and historic sites, and let us know in the comments what Doune Castle means to you.